Shruti Smriti Purananam Alayam Karunalayam Namami Bhagavatpadam Shankaram Loka Shankaram Shankaram Shankaracharyam Keshavam Badarayanam Sutra Bhashyakritau Vande Bhagavantau Punah Punaha Ishvaro Gururatmeti Murti Bhed Vibhagine Vyomabhat Vyapta Dehaya Dakshina Murtaye Namaha Gukarastvandakaro Vai Rukarastvanivartakaha Andhakara Nirodhitvat Gururitya Vidhiyate Sadashiva Samarambham Shankaracharya Madhyamam Asmadacharya Paryantam Vande Guru Paramparam. Om Sahana Vavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahaviryankaravavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. So with the last class, I think we can consider that we have at least completed a word for word, not every word, but many of the words of Sri Rudram, most of the important verses of words of Sri Rudram, and also much of the sentence meaning of the various mantras. So with that, we had completed this, and as you know, we based these talks on two texts, one by Swami Dayanandji and one by Swami Maheshananda. And so with that phase of these classes is now over. So what we are going to do now is to switch and now really just take up the exposition of Sri Rudram by Swami Maheshananda. Okay, and so let me give you an introduction to that section, that phase of it in a minute. But before I do that, I promised one of the students, Poonam Yadav, that she wanted some more explanation about a brief reference to the word Bhagavan in the last class, and I had mentioned something about it, perhaps just as a passing reference, and so she wanted to know more about it. So let me at least, I promised her that I will take that up in the beginning of this class, so here's what it is. So the word Bhagavan is a technical word. So there are a lot of technical words in Vedanta, in the Vedas really in general, that have to be understood in terms of what do you mean by a technicality? What do you mean by a technical word? So this is sometimes also referred in Sanskritam as paribhasha. So paribhasha means it's a very precise definition. Okay. So, the classical example we give is that of the technical word called mouse. So the mouse has to be given the proper context, only then the meaning will become clear. Is this a real moving mouse, or is it something that is associated with computers? So these are called technical words. So similarly here also, Bhagavan is a technical word. There's I think Swami Dayanandji had given this a very interesting misinterpretation of the technical word, and so it just comes to my mind. Let me just relate that funny story, all to do with what is meant by technical word. So there was a man who was building a new home, and it's been going on for a long time. Building a home is not not an easy thing to do, especially in India. But he was doing all that. And then his friends would visit him and say, how is it going? When are you going to move in? When is it going to be complete? And so on. So one day he announced to everybody that we are going to have a opening of our home, Griha Pravesha, and you're all invited to the party. So everybody came, and he was showing off the house. What they found was something very funny. The whole house was pretty much complete. Furniture was there, rugs were there, utensils, beds, everything. But the ceiling was missing. There was no ceiling. They all said, What? What is going on? What is... So they all approached him and says, What's this? So he said, you think I'm a fool? I know what I'm doing. So this is what? He said, I was thinking about completing the ceiling when I read an official gazette from the government of India. You know how these gazettes are published in newspapers. May you know this is the new proclamation. And it says, the government has decided to put a ceiling on all new construction. So he says, when I read that, I said, oh my God, this is wonderful. I don't have to put the ceiling on it. The government will put the ceiling on it. So he says, I'm just waiting for them to put the ceiling on it. That's it. Everything else is ready. So this is what Swami Dayanand used to say is the non-understanding of the word ceiling, or non-understanding of the technical word. Same word, but it has to be, context has to be created. Bhagavan is such a technical word. How? So there is a verse that I was looking for my notes, somewhere I have it. There is a shloka that defines what this Bhagavan means. But at least the word Bhagavan means Bhaga asya asti iti Bhagavan. Bhaga asya asti iti Bhagavan. So this is the definition of the word Bhagavan. It means the one that has bhagas. And bhaga itself is a technical word. So one that has bhagas, one who is possessed of bhagas is called Bhagavan. So Bhagavate, Namaha Bhagavate Namaha. Bhagavate means, hey Bhagavan. So the fourth case of Bhagavan is Bhagavat, is the Pratipadika, and Bhagavan becomes the name, and the fourth case is Bhagavate. So Bhagavan means the one that has bhagas. What is bhagas? So bhagas is also a technical word that is a collection of 6 gunas. 6 gunas, qualities, 6 qualities. The one that has 6 qualities is called Bhagavan. What are those 6 qualities? Okay. First one is Aishwaryam. Let me just do the Sanskrit for it and then I will explain. Aishwaryam, Viryam, Yashas, Jnanam, Shri and Vairagyam. These are the 6 gunas. So let's go through the meaning of them. Aishwaryam. Aishwaryam means overlordship. Overlordship means a complete, is unquestioned boss. unquestioned boss. Just like, you have somebody at the office who is the real boss. That is called the overlord of, this is called Aishwarya. Ishwarasya bhavam iti Aishwaryam. Okay, and I'll come back to all these in a minute. Okay, so the second one is Viryam. Viryam means capability, power, ability, called Viryam. Yashas is the third one, called fame. Fame meaning something that people know about. It's a proclamation. It's nothing hidden about it. So famous, when you say famous comes from fame. So famous means one which is well known. Well known, everybody understands it. Nothing secret, nothing behind, underneath the table or anything like that. Famous person, fame, yashas. The fourth one is jnanam, means knowledge, to know, to be aware, is jnanam. Shri is the fifth one. Shri means all the wealth, all ability, all possible requirements that are necessary to accomplish things, all the tools, all the accompanying things, and so on. Wealth in general. So not just money, but here means, in order for to know a successful life, you have to have health. You need to have knowledge, you need to have ability, all of those. So the combined things is called Shri. The last one is called Vairagyam. Vairagyam means absence of anxiousness. Ability, something very natural. So all these other things, it's not as though you are trying for it. You're not anxious for it. You're not desiring of these things because they are very natural. Examples of Vairagyam given are that Ishvara's possession of all these other things and so on, it's like blinking. The blink of the eye. The blink of the eye is a very natural phenomenon. Talking of the blinking of the eye, some time ago, about a couple of years back, my wife noticed it me. She said, "What's happening to your eye?" So I said, "I don't know, I'm feeling fine." She says, "Go look at the mirror." I went to the mirror. My eye was flaming red, as though blood was going to come out of it. And I didn't even feel it. So I said, my God. So we called up the doctor. And we couldn't get an appointment. It was like late on the Friday evening. These things happen only on the weekend, when the local clinic is closed and everything is. And so I didn't know what to do, and we were just thinking, should we go to the emergency or what? But somehow we said, it's not a pain, so let's just wait. So I wrote a note to my doctor and said, I have this kind of a condition in my eye. So they were able to accommodate me on Monday or Tuesday, which was a long time, and the eye was not getting any better. Not getting any worse, but it was not getting any better. So I went to see her. In fact, I think it was a video appointment when we were in the COVID. Yes, I remember that now. That's why I got it so quickly. So on the video she said, "Okay, put your eye next to the camera." Then she says, put the other eye on. And then move your eye, did all that. At the end of that, she said, this is okay, there's no problem. She says, do you work on a long time on the computer? I said, yes, I do. She says, that's the problem. So what happens is that if you are working on a computer for a long time, you forget to blink. You keep your eyes open like this and you're writing and you're composing emails and so on and so forth. You should be doing like this. So Bhagavan, we're talking about Bhagavan, Ishvara. Bhagavan is another word for Ishvara, really. Has made blinking a natural phenomena that lubricates your eye. Otherwise, why would we blink? We wouldn't need to blink. You get up in the morning, so it's nice to have a little shade. Sometimes if you have something hot that comes into your eye, it's just what a creation by Ishvara. Immediately your eye closes and you might save your eye because a hot piece of something might enter into your eye and damage it. But at least there is some covering. So the blinking is a kind of a natural phenomena. So they say the whole Shrishti, our Shastra says this, the whole creation is a piece of cake for whom? There is no anxiousness. It just happens naturally. Another one is like breathing. So Vairagyam means that you function for the joy of it. There is no anxious, there is no worry. You're not concerned, you're not anxious to do better. It just happens automatically. So these are the 6 bhagas that are given to Ishvara. Now, one final thing. These 6 bhagas are present in Ishvara in unlimited quantities, unlimited ways. Aishwaryam, overlordship, there is no one bossing Ishvara. This is where the buck stops. He is the final boss. Viryam, he has plenty of power to do anything. Yashas, of course, we all define, no matter what religion you are, what spiritual pursuit you're following, we all call God as Almighty. We know it. It's famous. The Almighty. Yashas. Jnanam. Both detailed knowledge as well as general knowledge Ishvara has. Shri. Whatever he needs to create, the wealth, has it. And Vairagyam we already talked about. So now what we have to see is that this is something that we have to really slowly understand, is that each one of us is a manifestation of Ishvara. Just like each wave is nothing but a manifestation of the ocean. Being non-different from it, it displays the very power of the ocean water. Huge breakers and foam, all those kinds of things that you see in an ocean water, or any water for that matter, but here the ocean water is noisy, it's powerful, it can It can topple ships, tsunami. It has a very lot of action involved. So these are nothing but just a manifestation of the basic ocean water. So similarly, each one of us is nothing but a manifestation of Ishvara. And in our classical example that we take, that a room space is nothing but a manifestation of total space. And as such, each one of us has these 6 qualities that Ishvara has in an unlimited way, in an absolute way, and we have it in a limited, in a relative way. We are also mini Bhagavans if you really think about it. This is what our acharyas point out. Aishwaryam. Aishwaryam means total boss. Yes, Swami Dayanand used to say that. He says, this happens all the time. Supposing you see a bug and inside the house you don't like bugs. You don't mind having bugs outside when you're walking the garden because it's naturally, but I want this home to be protected. If you see a bug, especially kind of like a dangerous looking bug that is unrecognizable, you have Aishwaryam. You can decide what to do with the bug. You want to squish it, you can do it. You want to let it go, it's up to you. So with respect to a small living being, each one of us has Aishwaryam. But relative to our office boss, sometimes our spouses, and so on, we are not the total boss. Our spouses can say, "What are you doing? You shouldn't be doing this." I'll say, "Oh, sorry. You think you were going to be in charge of doing something, but you are put into the proper place." And so you have limited Aishwaryam. Viryam, you have power and certain powers to do. You can raise your hand right, you can raise it left. But can you fly? No, I cannot fly. So Viryam is limited. Fame is limited. Knowledge is limited. Wealth is limited. Vairagyam is limited. But we should see that the limited nature of the bhagas that we have are really nothing but the expression of the unlimited. Okay. So anyway, that's a long dissertation about the word Bhagavan, and somebody asked for it, so I thought I would cover it. All right. Let us now shift over to the remaining classes. So the first part of it, first phase of it is now complete. So give you an introduction to that. If you look at this book by Swami Maheshananda on Rudram, Rudra, he calls it Rudra, Rudram or Rudra. This book has 2 sections to it. The first section is a word for word, sentence by sentence exposition which we have now complete. So that went from page 1 to 124. This one, complete. More or less complete. We have covered it. Let's say we have covered it. Now what Swami Maheshananda did, and these guys have done an excellent job in really impressed by the transcription, the error-free nature of it, marvelous, really. So, in the second part of the book, Swami Maheshananda ji gave 50 classes to the public in New Delhi. From my introduction, I'm finding all of this out. Starting on the 7th of February 1975, ending on the 29th of March of the same year, 50 discourses, one per day, to a general audience of people, not just to Vedantic students, but of course very interested people who I think generally were well-meaning, and they're interested people, and so good smart people. So these are the the 50 classes given to them, and those are now given in page 1 again. It's a new page system, all the way up to 638. So the bulk of the book is based on discourses. So when I was reading this, when was the first time I read it? Yeah, I guess in 2011, January 25th, 2011. I of course enjoyed the interpretation of the verses themselves in the first section, but where it really hits home are the discourses in the second phase. I was really blown away by it. And what I'm finding really is that reading books in my mother tongue, in Hindi, by established Mahatmas brings me a new depth of this knowledge, which is not possible otherwise. Other than actually listening to them in person, when they are not there anymore, and I am here in California and I cannot go to India to seek out some Mahatmas and so on. But their well-written books are the closest thing that comes to it, for two reasons. This is interesting for me. I'm discovering it myself. Two reasons. One is that most of us don't know Sanskrit well enough that it talks to you effortlessly. At least not with me. I know Sanskrit to a certain degree, but not to the extent where I have to read something in Sanskrit and I have to parse the words, and now I'm getting better have been getting good at it, break the sandhi and so on and so forth. But it doesn't talk to me as clearly as my own mother tongue. There's something peculiar where the way the mother tongue talks to you effortlessly is something that it cannot be done in any other way. And now, so that means that there is a certain beauty in reading books by Mahatmas that talk like that. Second thing is, the talking of these Mahatmas in the Indian vernacular languages like Hindi, could be any of the words, could be Gujarati, could be Telugu, could be Tamil, could be any of the vernacular languages that are spoken by a Mahatma and transcribed, is far superior to someone that talks in English alone. it cannot convey the same meaning. Okay? So I would say this, that even though I really was very fortunate to study with Swami Dayanand Ji for all those years with a very close association. So one thing is that his presence made it a lot easier and my knowledge became deeper because of my association. But he taught in English. And I found, and he spoke very well in English and also knew his Sanskrit very well, translated all the words. But there is some beauty about learning from someone who speaks to you in the vernacular language. So I've really gained a lot by both Swami Maheshananda Ji and Swami Akhandananda Ji, that I am now currently studying. And I have so many books from both of them. I have more books from Swami Maheshananda Ji, but also quite a few from Swami Akhandananda. And anyway, we'll talk more about that. So anyway, the language and the way of explaining the depth of it, the technicality of it is marvelous. So anyway, so this is the second phase that we can now resume. I say resume because we had already started to review it in Sailorsburg. So now let me tell you what the extent of it is. Okay. So these 50 talks by Swami Maheshananda Ji has gone over the first 7 mantras of Sri Rudram. Only first 7. Because I don't know exactly how many there are. In the 11 Anuvakas, there must be, I don't know, my guess is maybe 10 times as many, 60 to 70 mantras. But all the 50 classes only concentrate on the first 6 mantras. Okay, 7 mantras. And so those mantras, as you know, I'll just recite it, starting with the very first one of Anuvaka 1. All this is in Anuvaka 1. Om Namo Bhagavate Rudraya Namaste Rudramanyava Utota Ishave Namaha Namaste Astu Dhanvane Bahubhyam Utate Namaha Yata Ishu Shivatama Shivam Babhuvate Dhanuhu Shiva Sharvyaya Tavatayano Rudramidaya Yate Rudra Shiva Tanura Ghora Papakashini Tayanastanu Vashantamaya Girishanta Bichakashihi Yamishan Girishanta Haste Bibharshastave Shivan Giritratam Kuru Tatam Kuru Mahi Gumsif Purushan Jagat Shivena Vachasat Tvagirishat Chavadamasi Yathana Sarvamit Jagata Yakshmagum Sumana Asat Adhyavochadadivakta Pratamo Daivyo Bhishak Ahiguscha Sarva An Jambhayant Sarva Astayatu Dhanyaha Asauyastamro Arunauta Babhrusu Mangalaha Ye Magum Rudra Abhito Dikshu Shrita Sahasrasho Vaishagum Heda Imahe. So these are the 7 mantras that has been commented. So in Sailorsburg, in those 18 classes that we went over, we had already finished number 1, number 2, and had almost completed number 3. We have a little bit more, and this is where we will resume, We'll resume at the end of verse of mantra number 3. And then we will finish number 4 through 7. So this is how we will proceed. Okay? So this is the background for it. And I think that if you're interested, if you just want to listen from now on, that's okay too. But if you wanted to have a complete summary, then you should go back to some of the recordings of the Sailorsburg. And the last recording that talked about the mantra number 3 is in class number 18. I looked that up. So it's in class number 18, if you want to do that. So, and so that Tritiya mantra was Yamishun Girishanta Haste Bibhashyastave Shivan Giritratan Kurumahi Gumsif Purushan Jagat. This is the mantra that we are currently doing. So you can go back to see what we talked about. He says that please hold me in your own hands and shape me as an arrow so I become sharp and I can actually travel to reach you. So an arrow has to be massaged and kept well, otherwise it is fluffy and it won't go that much. You have to really you have to stretch it and throw it long ways away. And so all the powers, the guru and the vidya and all that is the power, but the jiva is the ishuhu, is the arrow. And so that arrow has to be worked on so that it is able to follow and to reach the desired destination. This is the metaphor that it uses. And the end of that he says, Shivan Tiritra Ma Gumsi Purusham Jagat. He says, please do not allow obstacles to come in. So this is what is talked about. Obstacles. This is where we have to now discuss. Ma Gumsi Purusham Jagata. Okay. So here, just going through his explanation, first of all, what is a Purusha? So Purusha is one that wants Purushartha. Purushartha means the goal, also called Uddeshya. And that is a complete freedom in my life, away from any problems of any conditionality. So this is called Purushartha. And the person who has discovered this is what I need to do. Because otherwise we don't even know what the goal is. You ask an average person what is the goal of your life? And the person says, I have no idea. I'm just living day to day and I just want to be happy. That's all. Is there a kind of a composite goal of the end of the life? Of course there is. And that is to find unconditional freedom. But because I give up on the idea of finding unconditional freedom, I don't even strive for it. There's not even a possibility. This is what the whole teaching is all about, that please, it's possible, You can be free while you are still alive. Why? Because our assumption is that if I am alive, that means I am under the control of my body and mind. And the body and mind are slowly collapsing. Not mind, but body is collapsing. Mind also is collapsing. And there's no possibility of my finding freedom, because the assumption is that I am the person who's kind of like enclosed in the body mind. And if that enclosure is collapsing, I'm going to collapse. All false assumptions. And so the idea is that really that's not true. You, in fact, your freedom consists in understanding you remain the same even though the body is collapsing. So that is freedom, that is called Purushartha. So a Purusha is the one who at least gets it, that yes, this is a possibility. And so anybody that has studied Vedanta with a teacher for a length of time is now aware of the fact that this is a possibility, and it may not be there yet, but I want to get to that point. So that is technical definition of Purusha. Okay. And so now, the thing is that I just need to make sure that my reaching this goal is made possible, because it seems like a very difficult thing to do. I don't know. Day in and day out, I'm just used to dealing with problems, and I don't know how these problems are going to go away. So, the first thing is that a Shraddha towards Ishvara is very important. Because this is exactly why we say Sahana Vavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Saha Viryam Karavavahai. Important verse. Important shloka mantra. Means this is a joint effort. By yourself you are not going to be able to do this. Shastra says it. If you think you can do this by yourself, you are sadly mistaken. It's some kind of an ego that I am a very smart person, I can figure it out. No. So you need the blessings of Ishvara. At any point in time you have to say, please help me. Who else will help you? Your friends? Your family? No. They will not. They cannot help you. They will help you a little bit, but not completely. Ishvara alone can really give you that. But if you do have Shraddha towards Ishvara, it's like saying, okay, Ishvara, what is it that I need to do? So this is when you say, I have obstacles all around me, and I'm not really making any progress. What is it that I need to do? So Ishvara says, I'm happy you asked. Very good. You're making progress. At least you're asking. So he says, okay, let me give you some of them. First of all is you need to remove your attachment to limited things. It's called asakti. Asakti means an attachment to things that are not correct. So this you have to do. You have to follow. So Ishvara says, okay, are you sure you want to follow my instructions? He says, yeah, I'll follow your instructions. Okay. First instruction is, please be aware of your asakti. Asakti means you're glued to something and you are unwilling to unglue yourself from it. Okay? So, again, I just give you the same example just because of the topicality is that if you are part of the Republican Party and the Republican Party is doing a number of wrong things. Up until recently, most of them were still saying that the last election was stolen. His stupidity. It was not stolen, but you keep on saying it was stolen, it was stolen, it was stolen. So somebody says, are you a Republican? He says, yeah, I'm a Republican. Do you believe in the fact that the last election was stolen? Not really. I don't think it was stolen. So then why are you following the Republican Party? Just leave it. No, but I think I'll just still do it. This is called asakti. You know it's wrong, but you are still following it. Here in the Shastra it says, Satyam vada dharmanchara. Taittiriya Upanishad. May you speak the truth and may you follow dharma. Dharma means your values, your conscience. May you follow that. And then, Swamiji would say, he's talking to the general audience now, he's not just doing a technical analysis. So he says, I find people who I ask them, do you bribe certain people to get things done? So if the people are honest, at least you should be honest. You can say, no, I don't bribe anybody. I don't give any kind of a incentive for anyone. I want to do things. Because you should not be doing that. Not be bribing. Follow the laws. So you may lie that you are bribing, but suppose you are a truthful person, you say, yes, I do bribe. Why do you bribe? Because the truth is you get dharma, and truth means that you should do according to the laws. So he says that, and this is what Swami Maheshananda is pointing out. He says, I find people telling me, Swamiji, you are not practical. This is not the way I can live in this life. Everybody wants to get bribes, and I have to do this. Do you really have to do it? Yes. But doesn't the Shastra says don't do it? Yes, the Shastra says don't do it, but I have to live. This is exactly like the Republican Party is wrong, but I have to follow it. It's called asakti. Anyway, so this is one of them. The second one is Manda pragya. Manda pragya means inability to think properly. So this is where the tamasic tamas is to be kept away from. Tamas means laziness, means not trying hard enough, means casualness, means wrong foods, eating the wrong foods. Example of that is that really speaking, you have to see that after eating a heavy meal, your mind cannot think very well. And it's a very natural phenomena because you know that as well as I do, that when you eat, especially a heavy meal, Ishvara has made that all of the efforts of your body should go towards the absorption of food in your body. So in fact, even the oxygen also is is enhanced in those parts of the body that promote digestion. So there is limited oxygen in the body, and so that means that some of it is stolen away from your mind and given for the purpose of digestion of your food. Therefore, you feel very sleepy. Feel very sleepy. You know, it's so interesting. Indian food, if you just go outside with parothas and fried food and so on, is so heavy on it that my wife and I had decided a long time ago we will never try to go to a restaurant that serves Indian food for lunch. Why? Because the whole afternoon is really becomes useless. This is what is called manda pragya. So yes, it was a very funny story. I didn't even know this. So there is a startup in San Francisco, and it's all meant for very bright people with artificial intelligence and PhDs and all that, with a lot of thinking and so on. So when they recruit people, one of the questions is, how much do you eat during the day? It's a very, very funny way of asking. You can say what studies have you done, what do you know, and all that. But eating during the day, you know why? Because the principles of this startup decided that when you are relatively hungry, your mind is very sharp. So they promote, in fact I don't know if they stipulate it, but they promote the fact that when you come in, you're going to eat very light or nothing at all during the day. Just drink some water. They feel that the results are just outstanding. You may have noticed it all on days that you might be doing fasting. Your body is suffering, but your mind becomes very sharp. Anyway, this is called manda pragya, manda buddhi. The third one, which is interesting, is called kutarkaha. Kutarkaha. Kutarkaha means faulty logic that takes you away from the purushartha. Faulty logic. So here it points out that be aware of the fact that the nature of the mind is that it tends to follow some advice or direction which is appealing at that point in time. It just follows it. And you have to almost like step back and say, should I really do this or not? But if you don't have the ability of stepping back and looking at the overall totality of it, you're sort of blown away by your mind and you keep doing some things that are detrimental to your success. Sw Maheshananda gives a very interesting example. He said it's a long example, so I'll try to do it in a very short amount of time. The example is, well, it's an important example. Example is that there is a couple that had a tragic thing in their life. Their young son died suddenly. Okay? And so they took the body to the local place where the body is burnt. We don't bury the body in Hinduism. In Hindu, so we burn it. And so you take it to the local place where bodies are cremated. Okay, and so they wanted to do that, but they couldn't get them to really see their son, who was alive and well, who suddenly died. So they were all sitting there weeping and so on and so forth. And so the so there is a vulture. So all this is a dialogue between the vulture and these two human beings. So the vulture says, the vulture wants them to leave so that he can eat the flesh of the dead body. Sorry about this strange example, but it's an interesting one. It has an interesting ending. So the vulture says, why are you here? Just go. Just go. And so they say, we are overcome with grief. And this is, that's very understandable, but this happens to everybody. What can you do? Just go and rest now, because he wants them to leave so he can actually peck at the body. So now they start to leave. As they are on leaving, they meet a jackal. And the jackal only comes out at night time. And he also eats dead bodies. So the jackal says, where are you going? So they said, this vulture said, he gave us this advice that, just go and it's okay. He's gone, there's nothing you can do. So the jackal wants to have the body at night time. So he says, if the vulture eats it, there'll be nothing left for me. So he says, are you crazy? Your own young son? And you are leaving him there without really cremating him? That is ridiculous. Don't you have a heart? So the husband and wife look at it and says, the jackal is right. I don't know what came over me. I think we should just go back and make sure that he's cremated before we go back. So they came back. So the jackal won. Now the vulture is saying, oh my God, they're back again. And so he says, why? Why did you come back? So the whole idea is that they were swayed by one, then swayed by the other, and they didn't know what to do. They weren't making any progress. And so let me see exactly what. So now, in the meantime, the dusk fell. So the sun went down and there was dusk. So it is said that Shiva has what is called Bhutanatha. Bhutanatha means that Bhutanam Natha, or he is the Vasudeva, means that he is the leader of, he is the person in which all of the people reside. And so he's called Bhutanatha. And so Shankaraha, what he does is, it is just given in our Puranas, that he visits each of the cremation sites at night time. In fact, this is what you have seen. You've probably seen that he's full of ashes and he's got a snake around his neck and he's fierce looking and so on. And the idea is, interestingly enough, I remember, it just reminds me, about 20 years ago, I went to give a talk at somebody's house I was invited to give a talk on, I think it was in Shivaratri. And so I gave this example that Shiva is usually seen to be surrounded by all these dead bodies with bones, with a dangerous snake and ashes and so on and so forth. But his expression is very, very serene. He doesn't seem to be bothered by it. There are ghosts flying all around him. He's in the middle of this very dangerous company. But in the middle of that, he's very, very quiet. So I said in that class, this was the same reference. This is exactly what a human being is. In the sense, we are surrounded with problems, with a decaying body, with likes and dislikes, with threats, with problems, and so on. But the nature of the Atma is not bothered by it. To discover that, discover the Shiva, who even though he is surrounded by this, well, that talk hit home to one student. I won't name her, but she came to me and said, my goodness, this is a new way of looking at things that I was not aware of it. And she has become one of the most devoted students of mine. 20 years later, she's still she's an excellent student. And I remember this all from this one example, how these things happen. So anyway, so this couple was really torn into two different ways of looking at it. Should we leave or should we not leave? And so at that time the dusk fell and Shiva appeared and said, you seem to be all very upset, and I can see that your son has died. I know that already. But why are you in this kind of a funny state where you cannot make up your mind and you are confused about it and so on? So they said, sir, this is the situation. When we listen to the vulture, we think one way. When we listen to the jackal, we think another way. We cannot really make up our minds. And we are really just at a crossroads and we have no idea. So Shiva asked him, he says, you know what? You seem to be good, pure people because you are listening to others, but you are sorrowful. What can I tell? What kind of a boon can I give you? Because I am the one that approached you, and I have supreme powers of anything you want. So they said, sir, of course the thing we want is, our son has suddenly died. He was very healthy, and we don't know what has happened. Can you give him back the life? So Shiva said, Tathastu. Done. So this boy who was still lying there, he had not yet been cremated, suddenly just got up and became life again. And so the vulture and the jackal, they were just loggerheads. He says, you, my goodness, if it weren't for you, we would have had a wonderful meal of the body of this boy. And he says, no, you are the one who has to. They were both fighting with each other and so on. And there was a happy ending. And so there is a message for all this. And so this is a message which means combining asakti and kutarka, means be a neutral person observing the various demands of the various things in your life, but don't follow them follow them only with reservations. And the reservations are that follow your own conscience, because Ishvara appears to us with conscience. That if, going back to the example of the Republican Party, if you think that the Republican Party is doing some wrong things, have the courage to leave them. Speak up against them. So do not get attached to things, particularly if it is kutarkaha. Kutarkaha means that they are faulty logic. So you have various religions in the world. I would say probably the most interesting and damaging one is the one that tries to mimic you, which is Buddhism. If you have something which is clearly wrong, it is not a difficulty to leave them. But if there is something that looks good, but according to analysis it's just still not right, you should leave them. So the Buddhists say that shunyam is the ultimate. Zero, the whole thing. They also talk about the same things, mithya of the world, kshanika vijnanam, it is all just the thinking about it. There's no reality to the world. It is true. So what should I do? You just meditate and you do vipassana yoga and all of this, and at the end of that you become quiet. You do get quiet. But for how long? And what is the end result is just zero without any transactions. It's not possible. So the Buddhism also leads you astray. So this is what is called kutarka. This guy it is like talking to a jackal who says, "Don't you know? Why are you not leaving him? Just go and be independent." Something like that. So this is, if you want to talk about ma gumsi purushan jagat, may you not injure me, then the idea is, okay, I will remove the obstacles, but you have to think properly. You have to follow the right path, right thinking, right behavior. All of that has to be done. All of that means in what way all of that has to be looked at in detail, and so we will do that. So with that, the third mantra is now complete. So now in the next class we will begin the fourth mantra, which is Shivena Vachasa Tva Girisha Chavadamasi Yatha Nah Sarvamidam Jagat Yakshmagum Sumana Asat. Very important verse, a beautiful verse, a very important one. So instead of starting it now, I will close the class today and we will take up the fourth mantra from next week. Okay? All right. Om Asato Ma Satgamaya Tamaso Ma Jyotirgamaya Mrityorma amritam gamaya. Om Purnamadav Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om. Pranabhuva, Raj Velpuri, Keshav Chopra, Shanti Kumar Chiluka, Satish Jalota, and Natalya. Quite a few of you today. Good. Keshav, Bhagavan acronyms Bhumi, Gagan, Vayu. Near Bhagavan has all these. Haha. So you're describing the word Bha for Bhumi, Ga for Gagan, Va for Vayu, and yeah, so I think that it's not as though it is not correct, but the classical technical meaning of the bhagas are well accepted in all of the Shastra. It has appears again and again, very consistent, and those are the ones that we had talked about. So you can put another meaning on top of that from a word standpoint. Yeah, sure, you can do that. It's not wrong, but in some way it is not complete, because a more complete meaning would be through Aishwaryam, through Viryam, through Yashas, through Jnanam. So those are the ones that we should really respect because they are given from our Shastras. How these came about are maybe linguistically interesting, but it is not, doesn't have the same power as the names, technical names given in the Shastra, would be my way of looking at it. Okay, all the best to you. Have a wonderful day, and we will see you. So next week we are not going to have this class, as I think you saw my posting on the WhatsApp, and then from 2 weeks from today we will resume it again.